Okay, everybody, welcome back to our second lecture for day one. All right, we're going to pick up where we left off. There's going to be a quick recap about positive. So, before we keep going, let's remind ourselves what positive reinforcement is. Positive reinforcement is adding something to the environment that leads to an increase in the behavior in the future under similar conditions. Consequences can only change future frequencies of behavior. So yeah, that's what positive reinforcement is, just in case you didn't remember. When I spell something out, just a little side note, in the notes, or in our PowerPoints this clearly, that's probably a good indication that you should really take note. Typically, I write pretty short bullet points. I want you guys to fill in the notes. If you're kind of still figuring things out with Blackboard and distance learning, I have attached the PowerPoint presentations above these videos. So you can download the presentations and print them out in note format. I'm sure you can find a Google tutorial if you need help on how to do that. That's a really great way for you to add your own thoughts and comments to my lectures, just like we would in class. Anyways, moving on along, a couple of other things about reinforcement. We want to present reinforcers quickly, especially for nonverbal learners. Verbal learners have what's called rule-governed behavior, and we'll talk about that later on in class. But it makes it easier for sort of delayed reinforcers to still be effective, delayed consequences to be effective. The other thing, a last note before we move on to a scenario to help us think about positive reinforcement, is remembering what determines if something is a reinforcer. And it's not whether or not we intend for it to be a reinforcer, or whether it's something that's enjoyable or we think is good. What determines whether or not something is a reinforcer is whether or not it increases the future frequency of the behavior under similar conditions. That is the only thing that makes something a reinforcer, so you can't know that something is a reinforcer without trying it. That said, let's keep going. I've got a small problem with my dog that I want to present to you guys. So I have my work from home teaching assistant here, Charlie. Yeah, you're a good boy. We're just going to talk about Charlie today. Charlie might play a role in future presentations, but this guy, Charlie, he doesn't fetch a ball very well. I throw him the ball, he picks it up, he runs off, sometimes he bites the fuzz off of it. I never see the ball again until I go crawling under the couch to retrieve it. I would like for him to fetch the ball. But he does really like bits of salmon. This guy goes nuts for salmon skin. He'll do anything to get it. So how could I use Charlie's love of salmon skin to increase his returning of the ball, or fetching, as us dog people like to call it? Pause here for a second. Think about what I could do with those salmon skins to get Charlie to bring me the tennis ball back. And then we'll move on. So I'll pause for about 5 seconds to give you the opportunity to press pause before I show the answer. So right now we see another behavior that has been reinforced. Charlie is sitting because in the past he's gotten treats for sitting. This is a great skill to teach your dog. So I'm going to deliver positive reinforcement to Charlie to increase. So if you watch him, he's starting to scroll now. He's going through other things that I've taught him to do. I'm going to get him to give me a high five. Give him a treat. Good boy. Charlie, high five. Good boy. So using those treats, I've shaped up other behaviors. That tells me that they might be effective for increasing returning the ball. Okay, so I gave you guys a clue with that video. Thank you for indulging me with my very cuddly teaching assistant. For me to reinforce that behavior of returning the ball, though, it has to happen after the behavior occurs. So I can't just give him a treat, throw the ball. That won't reinforce it. It might help pair the ball with presentation with treats. He might like the ball more, he might chase the ball more. It's unlikely to influence his returning of the ball, his fetching, though, unless it happens after he fetches. So the trick is going to be to wait for him where he runs off to with the ball to get in his way. So maybe I know he goes up the stairs. So getting between him and disappearing up the stairs with a treat, give him the salmon after he drops the ball. Over time, he'll return the ball because returning the ball has led to salmon treats in the past, just like you saw him sitting as soon as he saw me holding a treat, because sitting has been reinforced with the presentation of treats in the past. Assuming that all of this holds true and that I don't run out of salmon, I can use the salmon to reinforce giving the ball to me. Again, I'd have to monitor it and make sure that worked. Maybe salmon wouldn't be an effective reinforcer. Maybe running off with the ball and hiding under the bed is more reinforcing for him than presentation of salmon, but I doubt it. Okay, Just some quick notes on language, and then we'll wrap up with our second part of the presentation today. So when discussing things in a behavior analytic context, it's important to use concise language and to make sure that our language reflects the science of behavior analysis. One of the things that we want to do is to avoid circular reasoning. He's mad because he's crying. I know he's mad. He cries because he's mad. He hits me because he's upset, and I know that he's upset because he's hitting me. The behavior analytic way to say that would be like he hits following denial of access to the iPad. In the past, he's gotten the iPad for hitting, or as a consequence of hitting. We say that behavior is reinforced, so we reinforce a behavior. We don't reinforce a person. A lot of times you'll hear, they reinforce the child for communicating, for example. The child's not reinforced. We're not building a Tin Man here. We're not putting steel plates on someone's legs so that when they fall off their bikes, they don't skin their knees. That would be reinforcing a person. Sounds like a kind of cool idea, but definitely not my lane. And then there is a difference between a reinforcer and reinforcement. So the reinforcer is the thing or the activity that's given as a consequence, or that's presented as a consequence following the occurrence of a behavior. Reinforcement is that process of increasing a behavior by delivering something. Just a few notes to be careful of as you develop your behavior analytic vocabulary to help keep you sound and smart. All right, that's it for today. Thank you guys so much. Be sure to check the discussion posting, and we'll see you again later. All right, thanks. Bye.